George Carlin said, think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that. What real life example have you seen that validates this view? I'm a physician. I doctor specifically. I will tell you that the longer I work, now 15 years, my standard for the average person continues to decline. Case in point. Thanks to the awful information filtering out there, I had a patient just last week who read that vitamin D helps you resist a coronavirus infection. Well, he had also read that you can get more vitamin D by getting more sun. So he wanted to collect as much light as possible with his eyes. As a result, he stared at the sun for a solid 60 seconds and burned holes directly into his retinas, permanently reducing his vision with no chance at future improvement. Knew a kid who drank bleach to prove it wouldn't kill you. A week later he showed up at school after taking a shot. He said he proved his point when the teacher asked why he was bragging about it. Mr. Hawk just said, but you cannot argue that without that medical treatment you'd have died, though you even said you have stomach damage and a burn esophagus yourself. This kid was bragging about that. He was not mentally disabled or otherwise. He was just that kind of idiot. Edit. Thank you all. Who'd have thought my most upvoted comment would be about some kid I knew drinking literal bleach. RIP my inbox. Infantryman was told to trim the hedges. So he lifted the lawnmower. His buddy started it. As a brand new medic, I spent about 6 hours pulling finger meat from the hedges. Edit. Thanks for the award. Update. Sorry, I'm a derp and on a phone. For clarification, it was early 2004 after OIF 1 in the 82nd. I was a PFC with only a year and a half in service. We bandaged him, then used tourniquet, temporarily. Senior medics took him to the ER. I was field sanitation qualified, so I was left in charge of cleanup. 6 hours was excessive, but after we pulled most the meat and bone out, we had to hose down the hedges, the ground, the grass he bled in, the ground floor outside and inside where he left a decent amount of blood had to be rinsed and sterilized. The mower had to be rinsed and cleaned. It had some damage from the drop. The private that started the mower had to be smoked by his &co. We finished in about 4 hours of actual work with 2 hours of fucking off mixed in. Cause the sham shield is the real deal. A former co-worker was talking about how she wanted to go back to school to get her master's degree because she only had a bachelorette degree and wanted more job opportunities. I said, do you mean a bachelor's degree? She insisted it was pronounced bachelorette when it was given to a woman. Then she led me back to her office and pointed at her diploma, to the word baccalaureate, and said, see, bachelorette. I used to work in travel and the amount of people that did not understand the following was staggering. You cannot take a 3-7 round trip night cruise from Miami to Australia. And no, your friend did not just book this. No, there are in fact no ocean-bound cruises leaving from Arizona. You cannot take a cruise from Miami to Hawaii and back in 7-10 days. No, the airport is closed due to hurricane flood ice and you cannot demand a flight on a different carrier out of the same airport in the next hour. Also no, you did not just see someone book this. Yes, it is a shorter flight for your friends from East Coast us to the Caribbean than you in Europe, and no, nobody can change that. Yes, I will need your DD 214 to confirm a military rate. No, your word you were in a covered unit will not suffice, and no, I am not disrespecting the military because I cannot simply take your word for it. Yes, if a passport, visa, travel, vaccinations are needed for you to travel, you will need it, and no, a manager cannot override this as it is a government requirement. I have been doing this for 6 years and know your friends, neighbors, hairdressers, roommates, cousins, mailman does not know more about this than I do. A man I worked with, 23-25 years old, was absolutely positive that the TechRax video where he drills a hole in a iPhone 7 or 8, whichever was the first, without a 3.5mm jack, to make the headphone jack was 100% real, and they did it to hide it from customers, and this was a hack to find it. I'm a techie. I built another person's computer, and he argued with me for 25-45 minutes about this. I pulled up diagrams, explained he was drilling into the battery, and even named TechRax when he couldn't name the video maker. He saw it on Instagram, and I knew his entire channel was ruining tech. I showed him, and I told him if he could do it I'd pay for the iPhone in full if it works. and he was literally shopping around for it when another one of my co-workers who was watching this argument and siding with this man despite him knowing I'm a techie and trusting me to build his $2 KPC said, "Oh, my brother just got that phone and they called him and he said nah, that's fake," and that was it. They believed him. I showed them schematics and breakdowns of the phone and that wasn't enough. But now it's fake was. This man also had to get a ride home when his car steering wheel wouldn't move because it was locked as most cars do, and he played with it for an hour and was unable to unlock his wheel. He's a fucking mouth breather. Edit. One word to explain, it's a steering wheel, not a tire. When I was a sophomore in high school, a classmate asked to borrow a pen, and I lent him one of mine that had the Eiffel Tower on it. He asked where the building was from, and I said Paris. He gave me a confused look and asked where Paris was. Was it further away than Chicago? Now it was my turn to be confused. We were in high school. How the hell did he not know Paris was in France? But whatever, maybe he's not the brightest. So I inform him that Paris is in France. But he still looks utterly confused. I assume he misheard me, so I started explaining it France, you know, like France. From history class. World War II, Napoleon, that France. He said he was bad at history and had never heard of France before. He then asked me if it was another state, or was it like a region of our state. Utterly baffled at this point, I tried to explain that it was another country entirely, and it was in Europe. Exasperated, I remember saying, you know, Europe. That other continent. He still looked confused, so I added the land across the ocean. Finally, there is recognition on his face. He tells me he heard of oceans before. He thinks he understands now. I remind you that this encounter, with a student who didn't know what Europe was, took place in high school. Here's my story. I apologize for the length, but it's worth it. Trust me. Years ago, I had to apply for some kind of government program. Can't remember what. Probably something to do with my kids' health insurance. But that's immaterial. I had just closed the doors on a dismally failed business, which was why I was applying for the program. They had me fax all of my earnings and bookkeeping paperwork, most of which had zeros or negative numbers on them. The person on the phone was looking at the papers I faxed them the day before. Finally, the guy said, "Sir, I'm going to go ahead and transfer you to our financial expert." He used that word. Financial expert. Remember that. It's important. After a brief 40 or so minutes on hold, I was talking to the financial expert. We went back and forth for a while and she was obviously confused AF. My paperwork was as simple and basic as you can imagine, mind you. Like first lesson in high school accounting simple. She sighed with frustration. "Oh, really? You're frustrated, bitch?" Here it comes. After 20 minutes or so, she asks me, "What does so mean?" I get confused. I look everywhere. The word "so" is nowhere on the papers. I say, "Mom, you're looking at an exact copy of the papers I'm holding in front of me. The word "so" isn't on any of these pages." Well, to make a long story slightly less long, it took me another 10 minutes or so to realize that she, a supposed government agency financial expert, was mistaking the numeric designation for no money, $0, for the word "so." A financial fucking expert didn't know what $0 meant. Financial expert. That was the moment I realized that George Carlin was being generous when he said, "Picture how stupid the average person is, then realize that half of them are even stupider than that." In the 80s, A&W attempted to compete with McDonald's Quarter Pounder burger by selling a third pounder for the same price. The operation failed tremendously, with virtually no one buying the burger. When they surveyed customers for an explanation, the majority of customers responded that they didn't want to pay the same price for less meat. Their customers genuinely believed that 1/3 was less than 1/4 and refused to try the new A&W burger because of it. Edit. Obligatory fuck everyone who says "rip my INBO, I hate that shit." Can I get a medium pizza? We actually only have large. Oh, okay. Let me get a small then. We only sell large pizzas. Oh, I see now. I'll go ahead and get the medium then. Edit. Our large is the smallest we have. We have large, extra large, and 26 inches. We call it large for marketing purposes. Edit 2. A lot of comments here are further proving the whole question of this post. New York style pizza is huge, by nature. Every time someone says we just need let the virus burn through the population, it only really affects like 3% of people. It's astonishing how little people understand basic statistics. Or just have the vaguest idea what 3% of 7 billion is. Or even what 3% of their own community dying from a disease looks like. Fine, I'll spell out for you. Suppose you live in a rural county of 175,000 people. You all come into town for the county fair on Saturday, then church on Sunday. Some of you get exposed to the virus by a traveling preacher standing at the entry to the fairgrounds hollering about the evils of Satan, premarital sex, and small European hatchbacks. Same preacher gives a guest homily in church the next day to expose the rest of you. Over the next 3 to 6 months, your small 30-bed county hospital needs to handle about 10,000 to 15,000 really sick people, still less than 10% of your whole county. And for that magical only 3% to round out of the very sick in that overcapacity treatment center, nearly 6,000 of your family, friends, and neighbors die there. Many years ago I was applying for a job at an office. There were 5 or 6 of us there in the waiting area, and the receptionist handed each of us a clipboard with an application and a sheet of paper under it. The application was straightforward and simple. The second page was where things got interesting. It was a list of 20 numbered instructions. The first line said read this entire page before doing anything on it. The second line said print your full name and today's date on top of this sheet. The next 17 lines were instructions that got more ridiculous as they progressed. A few of them said to write things on the paper while others instructed them to perform physical actions. There were guys standing up and saying their name out loud, hopping on one foot, spinning in a circle and scribbling all over the paper. All really dumb stuff that had nothing to do with the job, but they were doing it. As this was happening, I made eye contact with the receptionist and both of us were trying very hard not to laugh. Apparently I was the only one who read the entire page as instructed before beginning. The last item simply said don't do anything on this list except for number 1 and number 2. It was obviously a simple test to see how well we could follow basic instructions. I got the job, but so did a couple of the others who didn't do so well on that test. I wondered if they administered the test just to amuse themselves because it didn't seem to have much bearing on who was hired. Hell, I've talked to Europeans who are interested when I tell them I'm from near Philadelphia, how they want to plan a trip to see Philly, historical sites, etc. There was the one who said, and while I'm there, I'll take a day trip to Pittsburgh since it's in Pennsylvania, too. Sure, if you want to wake up at 3 AM, drive 5 hours, stay for the day, leave around dinner and get back at midnight, and that's just one state that's not even that big compared to many others. Edit. For reference, I took my now wife to Newport, RI for her birthday 1 year. We were in 5 different states, PA, NJ, NY, CT and RI, on the drive, and it was a shorter trip than Philly to Pittsburgh. I worked at a bank. Mobile depositing had just became a thing. We received a picture of someone's cash for deposit. Yay. See bro. Just wait like 2 hours and take another photo of the same cash and deposit it again and again and again. Whoa. Instant money, yeah bro. Instant money. Fuck, we're gonna be so rich off this $84. I worked at Little Caesars and we were proofing the dough for pizza. My boss said, at 7 PM, that the dough needed to rise for 12 hours, and took out her calculator to do the math. So I said that's gonna be 7 AM. Then she said the dough will expire in 48 hours and started doing the math again. I told her it would expire 2 days from now, and she said that's kinda weird how that works out. I quit shortly after that. The most surprising thing here for me is that Little Caesars bakes fresh dough.